Hi everyone, my name is Jessica Fernandez and this is my experiential exercise. I decided to do it on the religion of Santeria, but before I get into the reasons as to why I chose this topic, I wanted to give you a bit of background and history about Santeria for anyone who is not familiar with the religion. So Santeria is a religion that focuses on building relationships between human beings and powerful but mortal spirits called orishas or saints. An orisha is a manifestation of one supreme God who, like the Holy Trinity of the Catholic Church, has three representations and three names: Olodumare, Olofi, and Olorum. Followers believe that these spirits will give them help in life if they carry out the appropriate rituals and enable them to achieve the destiny that God planned for them before they were born. These rituals include dancing, drumming, speaking, and eating with the spirits. Other rituals you'll find are altars or shrines that most of the followers keep in their household as a way to worship the Orisha. So you will find figures of the Orishas with candles.
Hi guys, my name is Jessica
Fernandez,
cups
and
of water.
this is
All
my
of this is to
experiential
help maintain
exercise.
that
I decided to do it on Santeria. The relationship between the Orisha and the human being is very much a mutual relationship, as the Orishas need to be worshipped by human beings if they are to continue to exist. The Santeria faith teaches that every individual has a destiny from God, a destiny fulfilled with the aid and energy of the Orishas. The basis of the Santeria religion is to nurture a personal relationship with the Orishas, and one of the principal forms of devotion is an animal sacrifice.
Orisha is a manifestation of one supreme God
who likes the Holy
the
Trinity
Orishas
of the
are
Catholic
powerful but not
Church,
immortal. They
has
depend for
three
survival on
representations and
sacrifice.
three names. So Santeria means worship of the saints is an Afro-American religion of Caribbean origin that developed in the Spanish Empire among West African descendants from Nigeria and Benin. Santeria is a system of beliefs that merge aspects of Yoruba religion brought to the New World by enslaved Yoruba people, along with Roman Catholic faith of the Spanish plantation owners. Because the slaves were forced to convert to Catholicism, the Yoruba people syncretized their orishas with Catholic saints in order to preserve and shield their traditional beliefs. The center of the religion is Cuba, but it has spread to the USA and other nearby countries, particularly after the Cuban Revolution in 1959. So for a long time, Santeria was a secretive underground religion, but it's become increasingly visible in the USA. Why did I choose this topic? And growing up, there were a lot of biases and stereotypes that I was told about and what I believed about Santeria. I mean, I grew up in a Roman Catholic household where religion was taken very seriously. I was surrounded by people or family friends who knew of people that interacted in Santeria or practiced it, and they themselves experimented with it. So when I was exposed to it, I myself had questions about it, about its existence, what was it, and all I remember was always being told, don't ask these questions, stop being curious, Santeria is a bad thing, it's an evil thing, it's the devil's work, you shouldn't be questioning it. And so because of all these things that I was told from very young, I grew up fearing any interaction with anyone who practiced Santeria because there was always such a negative association or a negative connotation with Santeria. I just assumed that therefore those who practice it are also evil. So I didn't want to have that association or interaction. I heard a lot of stories growing up about Santeria and the things that could potentially happen within that religion. One of the main things was that they were known for becoming obsessed, which in Spanish is known as either se le bajó el santo, which means the saint comes down, or se le subió el muerto, which the dead comes up. Se le bajó el santo means the Orisha has taken over their body in order to relay a message to the family or the community. And se le subió el muerto means a lingering spirit that has attached to the person and has possessed their body. Other beliefs that I had, or stereotypes that I believed about Santeria, was that they always used it as a way to gain needs. So whether it was because they wanted more wealth in their life. They were trying to achieve a job. They were trying to make someone fall in love with them. I mean, it was always a way to gain means. It was not for spiritual purposes. Um, Moreover, a lot of these ways to gain means kind of crosses over to the stereotypes I believed about them practicing brujeria, which is evil witchcraft or dark magic. And with this, I've heard stories that they use it to cause harm to others, whether it's a way of seeking vengeance or a way to stop their partners from cheating on them. I mean, there's many different stories of things, of potential jobs or trabajos that santeros do. A big thing that I didn't like about Santeria was the fact that they performed animal sacrifices for the ritual ceremonies. And the last thing was a strong association that Santeria has with the Cuban community. Because Santeria did pretty much develop in Cuba, there is this idea that a lot of Cubans, or not the majority of Cubans, practice Santeria, which is not the case. I come from a Cuban background, so growing up, a lot of people outside of the Cuban community, because that's what they hear of what they know from their experience here, is what they've associated it. At least that's been my experience. So I did not like growing up and being associated by any way with Santeria. So who did I interview? I interviewed a Cuban American family, which was a mother and daughter, Mercedes and Melinda. We met through a mutual friend, and the reason why I chose to interview them was because I heard that their family's practice of Santeria goes beyond 3 generations. So I thought they would be perfect for people to interview for this project. So on this slide and on the following slides, you're going to see a list of interview questions I asked both Mercedes and Melinda during the interview. I started off by asking Mercedes her definition of Santeria. And according to Mercedes, she says Santeria has always been a religion where she can seek guidance for what to do in times of need. It's been a way for her to seek protection by the Orishas to provide help and strength for her family. Her experience growing up with Santeria was a positive one. She experienced the importance it played in her mother's life when it came to faith, and that's something that she's always cherished and wanted to continue practicing. She also experienced how much it has helped her family in times of need, whether it was financial troubles, health issues, facing difficult decisions, family conflicts. She has always been able to count on the guidance of the Orishas to direct her on the right path. When I asked Mercedes about the importance of religion, she mentioned it's always been important for it to be a part of her life, but was something she never wanted to enforce on her children. She wanted her children to have the choice of whether they wanted to be involved in this or in any other religion, in the same way her mother gave her the same freedom of choice. Growing up, she was always given, she was always allowed to choose whether she wanted to practice Santeria or if she wanted to continue her religion in Catholicism or any other religion at that. But her mother did, it was important for her to educate Mercedes about Santeria. That way she wasn't misinformed and um, believed those stigmas and the stereotypes that are associated with Santeria. So since Melinda was present, I know that she has a 1-year-old child and a 5-year-old. So I asked her if she planned to pass this on to her children and why or why not. And Melinda's response to that question was no. Even though Melinda did grow up in a family that practiced Santeria, Mercedes also provided her with the option to choose whether she wanted to practice Santeria or not. And it was a religion that she never truly connected with. She did appreciate that her mother and her grandmother educated her about it. That way she was informed, but it's something that never resonated with her. So it's not something of importance for her to have to pass down to her children. She wants to give her children the same freedom of choice that she was given. But she did mention she was not opposed to the kids learning if they ever do become curious about Santeria. So that kind of brought us into the topic of her practicing Catholicism, and if she was still actively participating in this religion, and why did she choose one religion over the other, or why did she choose both of them? And when Mercedes mentioned that growing up she was raised Roman Catholic, as was her mom, so it was something that she found very common within the followers of Santeria, that a lot of them practiced other religions aside from Santeria, such as Christianity, Catholicism, Buddhism. It's something that it's common. As far as which religion has been accepting of each other, her experience with Catholicism is that they are not accepting of Santeria. She remembers growing up and to this day still having to deny or hide the fact that she practices Santeria to avoid being discriminated against. Because there's such a strong stigma against or towards Santeria, and especially within the Catholic community, it's something that isn't spoken of because you don't want to be that center of attention. You don't want to be called out or discriminated against. But her experience with Santeria is the opposite. They are very accepting and open to anyone who practices another religion outside of Santeria. Her experience, for the most part, with Santeria has shown her that they're very accepting of all genders, race, and even sexual orientation. And at that point, we dived into the conversation of roles of men and women in Santeria, and do they have specific roles? From what she knows, there are no specific roles for the males or females in the religion. The Orishas, there are both males and females. The priests, there are priests and priestesses. I mean, there is no specific role for either of them from what she's aware. And the most that she can remember is that there is a level that's called Babalao, and that is a higher level of a priest. And a Babalao is only for men. And in the Babalao, they cannot be gay. And this is something that has been passed on from years to years. It's something that's never changed. The reasons why she's not sure of, the only thing she can associate is because it's such a powerful role within Santeria. Could be the belief or the stereotype that a homosexual isn't as masculine, and that's why they say that the person cannot be homosexual, that the person must be heterosexual. But again, that's just her belief as to why that's her shot of a theory as to why the Babalawo is not allowed to be homosexual. And then we also talked about the rituals in Santerias and what are they most known for. And Mercedes first mentioned a common ritual, which is the Moyugba. In the Moyugba, it's a prayer or it's a very simple ceremony where they honor their ancestors by speaking their names out loud. They refer to their ancestors as Egun. She also mentioned a very popular one, which is a 7-day ritual for initiation for any new priest or priestesses. During this initiation, this initiation can last for 7 days. It lasts for 7 days. This is where you would see a lot of animal sacrifices being done. It involves a lot of labor work from different people in the Santeria community. There are many priests and priestesses that are involved. The person being initiated has more than 2 or 3 godmothers or godfathers appointed to them. And during this ritual, the whole purpose of it is for them to start anew, because they are transitioning from being a follower to being a priest. For the 7 days, they are being catered to. They are put on this pedestal on this stage, and they're being worshipped. So they are stripped from their clothes and they are changed to white. Their hair is cut off. They have to be completely bald. They are not allowed to feed themselves. They have to be fed. They cannot have any contact, physical contact with anyone, and this carries on for years. So after the 7-day rituals, they have a lot of restrictions of what they can do, Um, the restrictions you'll see is that they're not able to sit at the table to eat. They must sit on the floor on a like straw style mat. Um, they have to eat from a spoon. They cannot use a fork or knives. Um, they are, for the first 3 months, they are not allowed to look at themselves in the mirror. They are not allowed to take pictures. And they're not allowed to have any physical contact with anyone for that year. And they must be completely dressed in white from head to toe. And they have to wear these beads. And they vary in colors because each color represents a different Orisha. So depending on what Orisha claims them, that's the color beads that they would be wearing around their neck and around their wrist. So all these restrictions are meant, the purpose of them is to help ward off any evil distractions, any evil spirits that can interrupt their process of becoming a priest. And it's supposed to help them focus on their spiritual growth and their purification. And then the last common practice that she mentioned in Santeria, or what they call consultas, or readings. So during the readings, the santeros and the santeras, which are the priests and priestesses, the babalaos, consult with people to provide them with the guidance for issues presented in the person's life. The issues can be regarding health, financial issues, family conflicts. The whole purpose is to help them resolve the problems they're currently facing. And depending on the role, whether they're a santero, whether they're a babalao, they would use um, different materials for the readings. So a common one that's known is our tarot cards, and then they also use what are called cowrie shells. So they're these small seashells, which they call the logum, and there's 16 shells, and there's a way of throwing the shells, and they're supposed to, each shell has their own name, and it's very much a numbers game. It's very complicated. It's a complex system to read. It takes the santeros and the santeras and the baolaos years and years of practice, because since there are no written scriptures within the, or written text within Santeria, it's an oral tradition. They have to learn the language, and they have to learn how to be able to form that connection between themselves and the orishas. So it is something that takes very much practice. There are a lot of frauds out there that take advantage of people who don't know this knowledge, because this is not a knowledge that is discussed with outsiders. So unless you are yourself are a priest or a priestess or a babalao, you wouldn't know the process and how to gain that knowledge of being able to communicate with the orishas in that way. So it is something very complex to understand. So they do use the cowrie shells, and then the higher religious roles, which is the babalao, they may use coconuts or something they call the divining chain. So through all these forms of divination, these figures are able to allow them to communicate with the orishas in order to provide guidance and messages to those who are seeking it. So I asked Mercedes the purpose of animal sacrifices, how often they're done, and what are her views on it. And she mentioned that animal sacrifice is central to Santeria. The purpose of the animal sacrifice is for food more so than any mystical purpose. Um, it's done as an offering. I mean, it's their way to remain connected and worship the orishas, to continue that connection between each other, and especially in big ceremonies such as birth, death, marriages, the initiation of priests, it is something that's vital in order to be able to connect or allow the Orishas to connect with the human realm. Her view on it is just that she just sees it as a necessary need. She understands that there is a lot of, you know, harsh feedbacks and negative connotations and whatever you may call it when it comes to animal sacrifices for those who aren't part of the Santeria community. But again, it's something that's vital in order for her religion to exist, because without it, it's impossible for them to have that connection with the Orisha. So what are the different religious roles and authorities that are recognized in the community, and what is your role? I mean, the main religious roles we've kind of already spoken about, which is the santeros and the santeras. They're the priests and priestesses, the babalao, which are the ones who ornate the priests and priestesses. There are different versions. The paleros, it's the ones that are kind of associated with the dark magic. They stem off very far from Santeria. She considers herself to be an espiritista, which is part of spiritualism. She's able to see spirits. She's able to connect with the spirits that linger around, or spirits that have passed on. So she has been told that she has the ability to become a priest, or a priestess in her case. However, she still hasn't come to terms whether she wants to continue that role or not. So for right now, she's okay with just remaining as an espiritista. Are there any external signals or signs of participation in religious rituals? I mean, the main ones I kind of already mentioned, which is when they're being initiated as a priest or priestess for 1 year, they have to dress in complete white attire, and solely that, and they have to wear the beads of their orisha. It's very rare that you'll see santeros wearing black, because black is the color that supposedly attracts the muertos, which are the dead ones, the dead spirits that are lingering and haven't been able to move on. When asked what is considered most disrespectful in her religion, to her, the most disrespectful thing you can do is disrespect the figurine of an orisha, or an altar, or a shrine, or any material that's used as worship for the orishas. I mean, they're something that have to be respected within the religion, because they're the ones that they're the deities that they respect, and they're the ones that help provide the guidance and health and strength to be able to live on their right path. And what is considered most respectful in your religion is the ability to worship their orishas, and staying in communication, doing these offerings, doing these rituals to keep them alive. So I asked Mercedes and Melinda what would they say from their perspective the most commonly held misconception about people and their religion, and she mentioned that from what she's heard is that it's just an ego religion. It is a religion that is meant, in other words, to gain means, that it's done to do brujeria, on witchcraft on people. It's just it's all evil. Everything that they do is not for the good. It's not for spirituality. It's just a way of gaining means, or to do evil onto others, and that is not the case. And what she was telling me, she kind of gave me an example of how these orishas that they worship, a lot of them have, I mean, aside from the connection that they have with Roman Catholicism, there are some connections to Greek mythology and other deities that are worshipped in Buddhism and in other religions in the Asian culture as well. And she was telling me how some of the Orishas, like the Obatala would be the equivalent of Zeus in Greek mythology, and Shango is the equivalent of Apollo, and Oshun is the equivalent of Aphrodite. So a lot of these Orishas, it's not that they were just made up within the Santeria, they stem from other religions as well. There's a lot of crossovers between Santeria and religions outside even from Catholicism. So I asked Mercedes and Melinda, have they ever experienced discrimination and in what form? And she says, fortunately for her, she hasn't really truly experienced that much discrimination because she's very low key with um, with exposing that she practices Santeria. I mean, her immediate family obviously know, her extended family, some close family friends, but if if she doesn't know the person very well and she doesn't know whether they will be judgmental of it or not, she doesn't talk about it. So she hasn't personally experienced it, but she has seen people say very foul things about it and how they're double worshippers and how all they're doing is bringing evil into the world, and very very negative foul statements about people who practice Santeria. So then to close up the interview, I asked her, in her opinion, what could be done about discrimination and prejudice towards your religion. And she says it starts with this, with the conversation, a discussion, allowing yourself to be open to find out about a religion that you're not familiar with and not fear it. Um, you know, the only way we can get over these stereotypes and these stigmas associated is to kind of debunk them. And that can only be done by being open minded and by being open to the idea of talking about it with people. And whether you agree with it or not, respecting it. So then the last question I asked, is there anything you would like others to know that we have not included here about you or your religion? And, she pretty much just says that she would hope that this helps others, anyone who has had or has negative stereotypes in their mind about Santeria or believes certain stigmas about Santeria, that hopes that this interview in itself helps kind of break down those walls and those barriers of the stereotypes and the stigma, and to know that Santeria is not meant for evil in the same way that Catholics go to their priest for confession and ask them for guidance, whether it's marriage counseling, whether it's just guidance on life, on what to do, in the same way that they go to their higher powers within their religious communities. We do the same in consulting with the santeros and with the santeras so that they can be that person, in other words, being the mediator between them and the Orishas, in being able to seek guidance from the Orishas, and for the Orishas to pass on messages to the Santeros to provide to them as to what to do in order for them to live a righteous path. So on this slide, I incorporated pictures of altars for different Orishas. On the left, you can see that on the altar they have shrines for different Orishas. They're represented by different colors, and those are the food offerings. In the middle, that's one Orisha in specific, and on the right, I believe it's about 4 or 5 different Orishas there. Here on this slide, you will see pictures of the different materials that they use in the consultations or in the readings. On the top left-hand corner, you'll see the coconuts that are used. They're tossed and they provide different readings. To the right of that, those are the tarot cards to use in Santeria. On the bottom left, that is what you call the chain that are used to the babalaos, and on the bottom right, are the shells that are used as a way of communicating with the Orisha. Here are some images of what a botanica looks like. A botanica is the store where santeros go to buy their the materials needed or anything that's needed for a specific ritual. The same thing goes for any followers of the Santeria. Whenever they're asked to perform a specific ritual to help with their issues, this is where they would go to get those ingredients. So what I learned that I knew very little of the religion compared to what I assumed. Um, I definitely felt less fearful and surprisingly became more comfortable and curious throughout the conversation. It was very interesting the stories that she told me about her experience growing up and her stories with consultations and ceremonies and rituals that she's been a part of. They're very, very intriguing to say the least. It definitely helped debunk many stereotypes and biases I believed about Santeria. I mean, if we talk about behavior making sense in context, the context she provided about what's done in Santeria and the purpose behind it definitely made things more clear for me, and definitely took away the negative connotation I associated with it. Between the research and the responses from this family, I saw more similarities between Santeria and other religions, and not only to Roman Catholicism. I mean, just in general, to other religions, a lot of their principal values are very similar to other religions. They believe in a higher power to whom they seek guidance from to ask for protection, health, and strength for them and their loved ones. And I can compare that to Catholicism, at least in my experience. I mean, we go to church, we read the Bible, we pray to God, to the Hail Mary, to Jesus, to the Holy Spirit. These are all forms of us being able to connect to our higher power and seek guidance from them and to help us in our times of need, in our times of trouble. And they are no different. The practice of the santeros, babalaos, and espiritistas are meant to assist people in finding, understanding, and being in alignment with their individual destiny until they experience spiritual wisdom as a part of their daily experience. I mean, overall, this experience was amazing. I definitely am grateful in being able to have interviewed this family to help kind of take away those stereotypes and the stigmas I had growing up about Santeria. I mean, there are some things that I'm still not in agreement with that they do. However, I'm happy that I am at a point where I can be understanding of it and I can make sense of it and not um, feel that I'm being judgmental towards them. Now that I have a better understanding of the religion and the purpose behind the rituals they do, it makes sense. So it definitely helps with no longer seeing it through those negative lenses. So this is it. This was my experiential project, and I hope that it was informative for you guys as well.